So this is going to be a bit of a rant video because I just saw that Django 6.0 was just released, and uh, I used to be primarily a Django developer with the backend. And nowadays I just find myself not using Django at all, and I actually actively avoid it because of a lot of reasons. Actually, it's too many to list them out. So the first one is that Django just does not work well with AI and how uh, I try to make features faster. So a new feature in Django would be something like, oh my God, so many fucking pop-ups, man, distracting the hell out of me. So a new feature in Django or a new endpoint or page would look something like I create a new view that would require a filter that would require then a serializer. And if I'm creating a new model, I have to create a new model, run the migrations, um, create like a view set and all this stuff, query set, and then the get function, and then I have to make a schema, extend schemas. Now that's just the backend. Now after that, because AI is still a bit brittle with how it can switch languages, now on the front end side, I would then have to go and say, okay, let's say I go to a new page, create a new page here. Now I have to tell it, okay, make me a front end, but first generate the Orval schema. So Orval, if you don't know, where's Orval? I think in packages. So Orval, if you didn't know, it's a way to auto-generate the types based on your serializers, right? So it uses the OpenAPI schema that the DRF Spectacular that you probably know if you're a Django dev. I don't know, okay, here it is. So it uses that to create an OpenAPI schema, and then we use Orval to convert that OpenAPI schema into a type-safe endpoint. So for example, so this paginated list will have results, the result which has this, height is a number, ID is a number, stuff like that. And the read-only fields are marked read-only, and the ones that you can post are not read-only, stuff like that, right? So that makes it much easier on the front-end side to know what fields I have access to, even though I'm the one writing the fields on both sides. It's still like hard to keep track of every single field in your mind. So it makes it a lot easier. But that means that whenever I have to make a new page or a function, a feature, then I have to do this whole rigmarole. Okay, do this first in backend. Okay, stop that. Now, once that is done, all the serializers, hopefully the AI did. Okay, now we have to do, okay, filters. Okay, do that. And now we need to generate the Orval schema. That's a new message I have to send. I have to wait for it to finish. Okay, now that is done. Now integrate that into the front end. Instead of that, I can just say, so this is the other approach I have, which is this one. So instead of Django, what I'm now using is something called tRPC with Next.js. So Next.js you've probably heard of. I don't know if you might have heard of tRPC, but basically what it looks like is, let's see, tRPC dot, I think it's like use query. Yeah. So here, for example, I have a endpoint that gets me credits. So if I just click on this, it gets me to the actual endpoint, and I can see directly what fields I have access to. I have access to amount, and it can be amount or undefined, right? Now let's say if I wanted to add a new field to this, let's say, I don't know, like test field is test, and I save that. Now if I go back here and hover over it, oops, still loading. Yeah, so here you can see it already automatically updated to have the test field as a field here. So now whenever I do credit data, I can directly say test field because it is an autocomplete field now. There we go. I don't know why I'm so slow. I think it's probably because I have 3 projects running right now, and I'm recording a video, and I have Parsec on. I should probably quit that actually, and I have Steam on. I should probably quit that as well. So you can see that it's much easier. Now, if I wanted to make a new page, I can just say, okay, create this new page, and because it already has all this knowledge about tRPC, and Next.js is such a popular framework, it will just make the endpoint. So let me just go back to use query actually again. So this is what an endpoint looks like. And now if I want to add filters, I can just add the filters I want, right? I don't really need most of the time all the filters unless we're on a search page, for example, but each one we can have them split off like so. And yeah, that's one of the main reasons. So I want it to be much faster. And just to give you an example of how fast I'm talking about, so this is a pretty big project actually. This I've been working on for the last about 4 months at this point. You can see a lot of stuff happening here, right? Yeah, so a lot of stuff happening here. So this one I can't really give you an accurate example, but I have another project that I can give you a very good example for. So this, for example, so this is something called AdMake AI. That's the new project I'm working on. So this whole thing with actual functionality, with authentication, with Stripe, integration, all that stuff, and the front end and all this stuff, this took 3 days to make. 3 days. Like just think about doing this with Django as a backend and another language as your front end. So this one has access to, you can do like research libraries like scraping. Um, So there's a whole thing, like let's say I do photoai.com. Yeah, okay, this I have a whole pop-up, like it's pretty much like completed, basically. Like look at all these functionality, like all this page, all this stuff. Like it's actually kind of crazy that I finished this in like 3 days. Now, if I were to make an estimation of how long this would take me with Django, it would probably take me like at least 2 weeks, I think, to get everything done. So just the auth setup would probably take me a day. Just the Stripe setup would probably take me like 1 or 2 days to get everything done. Even though I've already done this in other projects, so I can just copy my code from there. Even then, it was still like there's edge cases and stuff like that. That like here, I just told it to kind of copy my existing project, which is this one. So you can see it's a very similar in styling, right? So I can just tell it, point it to, okay, just use that as a reference, and anything you don't understand, just take that as a reference, right? But I can't really do that on Django because it feels more verbose, even though it's probably not that verbose because for like view sets and stuff, it's like you're creating 4 endpoints at the same time. But most of the times you end up you end up like just customizing it where it doesn't really look the same as when you started out. So here in this example, like for every endpoint I have like so much stuff going on that it's kind of crazy. So yeah, so that's one of the things, like it's just how fast I can move with just using one language as a just for using one language for everything, right? So Next.js and tRPC, it's just backend, front end, everything is done. Now, I guess kind of the third point is it's not really related to Django, but it's a very big part of Django, like how people use Django. So I have, as you can see here, I have a lot of tasks, right? So where is it? Now, here we go. So it's like how I generate images, like it's a pretty big one. How I do image to image is pretty big as well. All that stuff. And I don't know why, but it just, I don't know if Celery itself is not async. I think you can like kind of hack it to be, I think you can hack it to be async with like, there's like not async IO. I think also async IO does it, but there's a specific package for doing async requests. But it just I don't know why, but it takes up so much memory. Like I keep getting into these. It has happened to me like probably like more than 20 times at this point. Like I've gotten memory errors where it just there's like a memory leak or something, and it just keeps on building up. And the number of requests I can do is very limited. It looks like stuff like that. It just makes me very hesitant to keep using Celery and by extension Django, because Celery, like I'm only using Celery because I'm using Django. And yeah, it's just I don't know why. It like look at my production. I'm also Celery. So I actually even have two Redis because the I don't know why, but Celery the Redis like would just crash because there was so many tasks going on or something like that. It was taking too much memory. So I had to make a new Celery like Redis just for Celery, because if this fails, I don't want it to be affecting the main Redis, right? And for Celery work, you can see I have like 6 replicas, and then each replica I'm giving it 6 GB, and then like 2 GB is reserved, and I have like a huge machine. I think it's something like 96 GB RAM or something like that. Crazy. So if I even have like health checks, and if it fails, I have another service. I think it's called like Auto Heal. So this one, what it does is, so basically, if any of the, oops, I think it's one actually, just the name of the backups. So if any of my services fail, or like if the health check fails, I don't know why this is not an option in Docker Compose. Like I think you have to use Kubernetes for this to be enabled by default. But if any of my services fail, I want them to start again, like just recreate the same container again, right? So this does that. It just checks if some service went down and just starts them again. That's pretty simple. Um, yeah. So that's the other thing. Like I don't know what point I was. Oh yeah, Celery. So Celery is just I don't know. Like I'm just making requests here at this point. Like before, I could kind of understand because I was also doing like some image manipulation, like uploads and stuff like that. But I moved everything from there to Cloudflare Worker, which only returns me the URL, and it's still slow. I don't know how it's possible. And another one is if you are making a website by yourself, that's the main point actually. So this whole thing is if you're like an indie hacker and you're not really doing this for a job, um, you probably have to learn front end, right? So, and most likely you would probably have to learn React. And if you're doing like a SEO optimized page, you probably have to learn Next.js or another like server-side rendered framework. So if you're doing all that, why not just use it also for the backend? Right? It just makes sense because um, it just makes sense because it's the same language, so you can just kind of reuse stuff both in the front end and the back end. So if you have some code that you wrote in, let's say like a calculation logic, right? So one example I have is I think AI generator. Right. So let me just move. I don't think I can move actually. Okay. Whatever. So here you can see there's a credits um, calculation going on. So whenever you click something, it changes, right? And if you select the model, I think it also changes. So if I want to replicate this, I can just import the same code I used, right? A function, I can just import that also in the backend, but I can't do that if on the backend I'm also checking credits. Now I have to write a new Python function just for that, right? It just makes the things a lot easier. And I already showed you the example with tRPC. Like I can literally just control click the function, like the endpoint, and I get to the endpoint directly. Before is also a huge problem with how, like if you want to check the specific logic you had there, okay, you have to remember that. Okay, let me just go back to the. So let's say I want to find where I'm using this endpoint, generate text to image, and I had to be like, okay, how's the endpoint would be called on the front end side? Like, I had to remember all that. I had to go there, or on the front end to back end, I had to be like, okay, I think that's on this view set. I have to search that view set, and then maybe it's a custom function, like custom endpoint I created, stuff like that. It just makes it complicated, right? And while I'm on that, another very big issue I was having with Django was I feel like this could also be skill issue. Maybe I just didn't look into it too much but like the the types, I don't know why they never work like consistently. Sometimes like here you see, I think I'm doing this. Uh, so this is like you can see here like inference job is a type like inference job model, but sometimes it would just not work where like I want to see what fields I can do here, and I get all these stupid methods and stuff, and I'm like confused. Okay, like what exact fields I have here, I want to know. And in some places, I think in Celery or something, it just doesn't even show me. Like if it's like a if statement or something, it would not show what fields I have access to. And what that does is it creates a problem for me at when I'm using AI to code is I tell, okay, let's say I tell AI to create a new endpoint. It creates the endpoint, right? Okay, like let's say there's no errors, there's no bugs. Okay, that's done. Now later on, when I come back to it, let's say I already implemented it in the front end, like separately. Now I want to change a field on the backend side. Now the refactor would just make it so difficult because I changed the field, but now I have to check every instance of the field manually. Kind of, I had to like, okay, I have to search for it. Whereas in the Next.js example, like you saw how easy it was for me to, when I added a new field here, it would auto update here, right? So let's say I actually removed the amount, um, the amount field, and I like like immediately I would see that okay, I actually don't have now amount field here, right? And if I'm using this in other things as well, I can do like run tc, and now I can see all the instances where I was using that field. And this is just much more helpful because you can tell AI to just run this command, and you can see, okay, it just sees this field is missing here, so it will just automatically fix it. So you can see here, like all these places I am using that field. Okay, I think my voice is gonna freaking go, so I think I have to cut this short. But here was the whole list I had. In case you're curious about the other reasons I had, I think I was on this one. Yeah, also the admin stuff. It's just very like I end up making this. I end up making an admin separately from my actual like. So this is my admin, like Django admin, and then I end up always making like a front end admin because I want to very quickly see like okay how much is happening without it reloading the page on me every single time. Like okay, how many starter people do I have? How many pro subscriptions do I have? Stuff like that. It's just I hate how unextensible this whole thing is without like doing too much. I think you could probably make another admin page, but then you're writing like HTML. Like, are you serious? I'm writing HTML in the year 2025, coming 2026, like crazy stuff. Let me just go through quickly with the other stuff. Yeah, I think I already went through this one. I think I already went through this one. Yeah, I think I went through all the basic points I had. And yeah, I just don't want to be slow. I like programming, but I want to, with programming, because I'm a indie hacker, I want to get things done, and I'm not really in love with the act of coding itself. So if something helped me get to the endpoint faster, then I'll just use that. And yeah, that's it. I don't know. Probably a bad idea to record this while I have a freaking that cold, because I feel like a cough coming up. So yeah, see you in the next one. Bye then.